Hello indie game fans, it's the end of the year but things are not slowing down just yet since I have 28 releases of interest this week, from cozy to horror to roguelites and more, with a killer and unusual top 5. But first, let's begin with Beastieball, a turn-based volleyball RPG where you coach a team of lovable beasties to victory. Step into the shoes of a coach as you explore the open world and run into rival coaches, where defeating them raises your ranking so that you can compete in the Crown series to essentially become Pokemon champion. Yes, this has that familiar monster taming setup but with a twist, since the matches play out on a tiny tactical grid where the beasties need to work together, passing the ball and setting up devastating attacks, but also need to anticipate and defend against opponent volleys. Every beastie has unique traits, strengths and weaknesses, and from playing together, they can become besties, partners, rivals or sweethearts, gaining a unique combo move that can turn the tide of battle, all wrapped up with a wonderful cartoony art style. ASTRONEER Glitchwalkers is the first paid DLC to this critically acclaimed space exploration crafting sandbox title, which introduces a new system to explore in pursuit of a rogue astroneer who wants to seize control of the system. There's a new planet with new biomes and challenges, along with new technology to discover, with the developers planning for new narrative, gameplay and improvements to the base game, and should continue to be an excellent title. This video is brought to you by Dog and Goblin, a deck-building auto-battler strategy roguelite title in which you assemble an army of units to fight back against the humans. This is a variant of the symbol building game in which you are drafting units and items that combine together in interesting ways. Having various synergies and combos to discover, and with nearly 150 units in the game alone, has an exponential number of possible combinations and strategies to discover. For example, having meat in your deck can boost the attack power of beast units, and Beast plus Hunter increases attack even more. There are also synergies to uncover between items and units, such as Goblin plus Silver results in a Goblin Merchant, or Goblin plus Gold resulting in a Goblin Alchemist, each of which will then have other possible combinations with the rest of the army, which is where the fun comes in. There are also various starting player classes like Cleric or Black Magician, with different special abilities, difficulty levels that increases the number of enemies, and extra difficulty modifiers like increasing enemy health, starting with a certain set of units and more, looking deeply strategic and fun. So if interested, there's a demo available on Steam with the game launching this week on November 15th, 2024, so pick it up then as well. A non-linear detective adventure game is Mindcop, where you play as the titular character tasked with uncovering the truth behind a murder in the quiet hamlets of Maryland Crater Camp. You have 5 days to catch the true killer among the town's inhabitants, where every action that you take has an associated time cost, so you need to make tough decisions on which leads to pursue and which to drop. Our hero has the ability to dive into the minds of suspects, taking the form of a real-time puzzle game, and if successful, you'll gain access to their sea of thoughts, where you can gather clues, uncover their secrets, and unravel their lies. The non-linear nature of this game means that you can choose what to look into, and depending on the decisions that you make throughout the game, it will result in one of 2 endings, all wrapped up with a pretty distinct visual style that is, admittedly, very grey, but fits in with the vibes of the game. Love indie games? Sign up to my newsletter to get a weekly dose of what's hot, along with some news and of course, weekly game giveaways, so if interested, link is in the description below. An adorable and interesting looking title is Night Stones, a cozy puzzle adventure game that kind of looks like a Zelda title but appears to be less combat focused, instead having you engaging with exploration elements. The text on the store page looks a little strange, and I'm not sure if it is some sort of machine translation, but the gist that I got is that our hero goes through a portal and finds himself in a strange new land, but suddenly the portal explodes and he is stranded there, now having to rebuild said portal in order to get home. You do so by exploring the handcrafted island, which is filled with unique quests and quirky characters, helping the latter to, I assume, get parts or equipment that will help you towards your goal. The exploration in this game looks neat since you will get access to a hang glider and even a boat, having a short hike vibes even if you're not playing as a bird. There are of course wilderness areas and dungeons to explore, which does include enemies, but the developer has what he describes as puzzle combat, so you are not exactly swinging your sword at enemies, but rather using items in creative ways. There will be hidden paths, lore and secrets to uncover, and has that cartoony Link's Awakening remake kind of look, which is neat and looks pretty good. A curious looking turn-based management sim is Dungeon Inn, in which you play as Sarah, an ambitious innkeeper that has struck a deal with a dragon to allow her to open her inn at a profitable location at the mouth of a dungeon that mysteriously appeared next to the dragon's lair. Your objective? Make as much money as possible from adventurers coming in regardless of their guild affiliation, but be careful, they won't be too happy to learn that you are playing both sides. For the most part, this plays similar to a tycoon game in which you are manning the inn, upgrading the facilities, and welcoming customers, reinvesting the profits to build more rooms, to generate more money and so on, having to make critical decisions on what food to serve or how to deal with rowdy customers, since your choices will affect your reputation. Inevitably, the adventurers from rival guilds will clash, which takes the form of turn-based combat. But you can covertly influence the outcome of the battle by sending in your armored wisps, having to balance the scales to reduce suspicions about your operations. As such, it's a clever concept for a game like this with a cute look as well. Other games begin with Dino Market, the latest bottom-of-the-screen idle game that kind of became its own thing following the success of Rusty's retirement, where you're running a market and preparing items for the customers. This looks pretty cute, even with the minimalist pixel art designs, since you can recruit a variety of animal buddies to help with manning the stalls, having built-in productivity tools like a to-do list and a Pomodoro timer, and seems neat. Okay, this next title is not really an indie game, since it comes to us from Japanese developer Inti Creates, but Divine Dynamo Flamefrit looks so good that I have to give it a mention. This draws inspiration from classic anime and games, having the 90s anime character look to the designs, with combat resembling something like Secret of Mana. Our hero is a master of the sword and can unleash a variety of attacks, such as a 3-hit combo or a fiery spinning slash, also needing to defend at the right time or to roll away to avoid attacks. You will also be able to recruit allies, which can summon powerful magic to help in various scenarios, including combat, but also traps and hazards. Of course, in Japanese anime fashion, there is a giant robot involved which you can hop into, since boss fights are in first person from the cockpit of the robot, where you need to move the crosshairs to deflect enemy attacks and to aim your own, with the mixture of the two styles of gameplay being interesting. Of course, the visuals are a key point, having some fantastic looking pixel art, which is rare for bigger companies to use these days, looking like a love letter to the 16-bit era and has promise. I believe this next title comes to us from a Chinese developer based on the Steam page, so there's a little bit of weird translation going on with elements and build, but as far as I can tell, this is a roguelite tower defense title that might have interesting ideas. For one, the map is completely open, so you need to construct your own maze, but also has hundreds of buildings that can be used in clever ways, such as recasting spells or cloning creatures when summoned, along with an interesting rotation system for your main tower that sees the elements fire off at different rates. It has a cute look as well, with what seems to be a bunch of meta progression in between runs, having a simple but effective art style, so I can only hope that the translation in this game is good. Speaking of towers, another roguelite auto-battler title is Epic Auto Towers, in which you are placing down and stacking towers to upgrade them as you defend against waves of enemies. From the naming convention and look of the game, I believe this is inspired by Super Autopads, but with towers of course, where the trick is to use the limited space to place your towers, but you also need to consider their position relative to each other, such as a cat tower being next to a milk tower, since that grants it more bonuses. You can stack towers to upgrade them and make them taller, which has an interesting visual effect, so hopefully the strategy in this game is deep enough to be interesting. If you've been around indie games, you might recognize the art style of Great God Grove, since it comes to us from developer Limbo Lane, who made Smile for Me back in 2019, where they specialize in adventure games, and that is the case here as well. Once in a generation, the gods are supposed to come together to postpone the apocalypse, but the god of communication in charge started a bunch of fights and squabbles between the other gods and went missing. So it is up to our heroes, the busy boys, to save the day. As the mail carrier of the gods, you need to convey messages from one character to another, launching speech bubbles to solve puzzles, and with over 60 weird and quirky characters to meet, does have the potential for plenty of personality to be shown. It's a weird looking title that matches the vibes, where next to godly crushers, pumpkin fights and puppets cooking, the developers also casually toss in grove keeping and god bossing, all against the backdrop of an apocalypse, making it a cool, weird thing. A game which I've had my eye on for a little while is Lake of Creatures, an action roguelite title that adds in fishing and puzzle solving to the popular subgenre. As you embark on this adventure, you'll find yourself scrambling through enemy-infested, randomly generated lakes in an attempt to save them from mutated creatures, using your fishing rod and guns in the process, looking like some sort of mix between Enter the Gungeon and Ridiculous Fishing. There are over 200 types of fish to catch in this game, using the physics-based fishing rod to do so as you cast your line and wait for a bite. With the interesting part being that the fish caught can then be sold or traded, and you can purchase treasures, which I'm guessing are like relics in a roguelite, that grant you additional powers. There are also randomly placed puzzles that affect the entire lake, possibly changing up the factors to consider for the run. You will also be able to unlock new characters, treasures and features by completing additional quests, so if you love the genre, this is the title for you and is the hidden gem of the week.
You fell right into my trap. It was too easy. How naive.
I might be old, but I have not played the original Little Big Adventure from 1994, so I don't have any particular nostalgia for this, but there is a full remake this week with the subtitle Twinsen's Quest that brings a fresh new look and modernized gameplay to the classic. Set in a world of both magic and technology, on a planetoid with two suns, 4 species lived in harmony until a scientist, Dr. Funfrock, invented cloning and teleportation. Our hero, Twinsen, is a model citizen turned fugitive, having to use his magic ball to end the clone occupation. It does look pretty nice, with modern sheen and polish, where again, since I've not played the original, I cannot comment on how accurate a tribute this is, but it looks neat, so maybe it could be cool. A strange looking title this week is Lower? Higher! A management simulation title where you run a pawn shop, having to haggle with customers in order to get the most value, buying low and selling high. Also having more meta-narrative elements to deal with, along with a cool cyberpunk anime look, which I sure hope isn't AI generated since that isn't disclosed on the Steam page. I believe there will be recurring characters in the game, so you can slowly suss out their personalities to achieve maximum profits, but you can also hire shop assistants to help in the process. They ominously talk about the butterfly effect in the description, meaning that the items you buy and sell will have an effect on the world, which includes but is not limited to the taxmen, missionary priests, and possible thieves who steal things to pawn, who then have a flustered look on their face when they enter your shop. I believe this also comes to us from a Chinese developer, given the qq.com email address listed, so watch out for translation and localization issues. From what I can find, Menace from the Deep appears to be the work of a solo developer from Ukraine, so full props goes to them for making this, since I imagine that it's not easy right now, where this roguelite deck builder with a Lovecraftian theme does look pretty promising. Set in 1920s USA, it tells the tale of an occult society as they investigate the mystery of a strange monolith known as the Heart of the Sea. There are 3 playable characters with, I presume, different specializations and abilities, taking on eldritch monsters in the deck building combat, having an art style that kind of looks like Dredge crossed with Darkest Dungeon. You won't be alone since you can summon allies, with combat looking to be very Slay the Spire inspired. There are also random events and critical choices to make, along with secrets being kept by members of the secret society, which you can uncover through collecting memory fragments, so perhaps an element of meta storytelling from run to run, although I do wonder how they will deal with madness in this game, since the whole thing about cosmic horror is that there are forces at play in the world that the human mind simply cannot comprehend. If you've been around video game YouTube, you might have come across Game Maker's Toolkit, where creator Mark Brown breaks down mechanics and games and studies them to find out what makes them tick, also hosting an annual game jam which is very popular, where he decided to make a game on his own, which is releasing this week in Mind Over Magnet. This is a puzzle platformer centered around magnetism, using magnets to move blocks, open doors and more, along with a cast of cute magnet friends to get to know. Conventional wisdom suggests that a level-based puzzle platformer would not be the biggest hit in today's gaming landscape, but yet his audience of millions of subscribers as well as game developers should be interested in this, since the game includes developer commentary on how it was made. So there are 2 opposing market forces working on this game, so I'm very curious to see how it does, but from one YouTuber to another, here's wishing Mark all the best. Another long-awaited sequel is NAIRI Rising Tide, the follow-up to NAIRI Tower of Shirin from 2018, where this game has been in development since, releasing their prologue demo in 2020, so it has been about 6 years or something working on this game. It is a direct continuation of the story of the quest that NAIRI went on to save her family while traversing through the corrupt city, mixing in an apocalyptic prophecy for good measure. I love the art in this game, especially the anthropomorphic animal designs, with the gameplay resembling a point-and-click adventure game with puzzles to solve, items to find and characters to help, but it does have a built-in hint system in case you get stuck, and in the most extreme case, you can skip entire puzzle dungeons if you just want to experience the story, along with user-friendly elements like a map and fast travel, which you can use without penalties. There are also bonus artwork and figurines to collect, which will reveal more about the lore of the game, and based on the original, should be one for fans of the genre. Speaking of cute and cuddly, an exploration adventure game of note is Petit Island, coming to us from Indonesian developer Zilo Games, in which you play as Lily, the grandchild of Grandpa, a brave and adventurous cat whose memory is fading due to old age, with only the stories of his exploits remaining, so our heroine makes it her mission to explore the island, relive his adventures and embark on new ones of her own, in an attempt to help him remember his past. It has a bright, vibrant and cartoony art style, giving a sense of whimsy to the world as you meet and befriend a cast of quirky and interesting characters, while creating and capturing memories with a camera. As you navigate the island, you'll discover hidden treasures, wild animals and bustling villages and cities, with the photography element looking wonderfully nostalgic as well. You can customize your appearance to tailor the experience to your preferences, with the more emotional side of things around fading memories possibly tugging at a heartstring or two, especially if you have aged grandparents of your own, looking like the perfect cozy game for the week. This next title also comes with an asterisk since we are talking about Tetris after all, perhaps the most iconic video game ever, and is being made by Atari-owned Digital Eclipse. But if you love video games, Tetris Forever should be of interest, as in the style of their game collection / documentaries like Atari 50, which, side note, the winner writes history, so take what they put out with a pinch of salt. This is a similar kind of interactive experience that takes a look back at 40 years of Tetris and the profound impact it had on the world. There are more than 15 playable versions of Tetris, including Tetris Battle Gaiden, which I'm told people love, along with a new Tetris game named Tetris Time Warp, which warps between the different eras of Tetris, along with more than an hour of documentary footage, where despite the caveat mentioned earlier, I think it's cool that people are making collections like this for the sake of preserving and celebrating video games. If you're hardcore into weird indie games, the Grim Reaper character in Trainee Death Simulator might look familiar to you, since it is the same character and is from the same developer as Yawnoc's Yard, released in October 2023, a game which has 6,800 Steam reviews as of recording, which I'm estimating to be equal to at least 200,000 to 300,000 copies sold, which is a significant number but doesn't get talked about enough since it is also from a Chinese developer. This title is somewhat of a choose-your-own-adventure kind of spin-off, in which you play as a trainee Grim Reaper, having to harvest souls to pay off your debts, having to make choices that affect 4 attributes: faith, energy, strength, and evil, which might be similar to Reigns, although I'm not sure since they don't really show off gameplay in the trailer, but it looks weird and is so indie games. Another long in development title is Ved, a story-driven roguelite turn-based RPG with a cool look, telling the tale of Cyrus, a young hero who has arrived in the city of Micropolis in search of a new life, only to discover the extraordinary ability to teleport between 2 worlds teeming with mysterious flying islands, enigmatic creatures, and formidable monsters. You will encounter a diverse array of factions, each with their own distinct perspectives on the unfolding events of the game, with the dynamic relationship system allowing you to influence the decisions of key characters. There is a twist on the turn-based combat, since you can utilize your positioning to gain a strategic advantage, also having a meta progression element in the Troglodyte village, which you can upgrade to unlock new skills and abilities. The game is non-linear, so every decision you make can lead to irreversible consequences and alternative endings, adding replayability to the game, with the whole dual world setup opening up the possibilities in terms of narrative, the longest journey style. A minimalist top-down Souls-like title is Void Souls, a game which I believe released an earlier free version quite a while ago, and the developer decided to make it into a full game. Imagine Dark Souls but top-down with geometric shapes instead of eldritch bosses, and you get the idea, also limiting your field of view with the columns and pillars blocking your line of sight to enemies, giving it a foreboding atmosphere. Whether it is too abstract or not, I'll leave it to you to decide, but all the systems are here, including bonfires, a currency system, and the more deliberate combat, looking like it's for fans of the genre. Here's an interesting title that might be a lot to take in, since Yawnoc is a pixel art action roguelite with effects for days, including the spam of projectiles, screen shake, wind effects like trees and grass swaying in the breeze, water effects, and not forgetting your character firing off weapons and the swarms of enemies. So it is kind of cluttered to the point of being difficult to read. Strange cellular automata have invaded the forest, and you need to fight back using powerful weapons and abilities, having a permanent enchantment system for the weapons which leads to the chaos. Interestingly, this draws inspiration from Conway's Game of Life, among other cellular automata simulations and games, so there is some sort of evolutionary algorithm that the enemy follows, but how that translates into the game I'm not sure, but I'll be interested to find out. This one's for indie game developers. The free indie game marketing resources are ready, so sign up via the link in the description below to get it in your mailbox. It's a big week and I have a very interesting looking survival horror title here in Sorry We Are Closed, where our protagonist, Michelle, is struggling to break a curse placed upon her by a powerful demon seeking love. Of course, the visuals are a highlight in this game, having a nostalgic looking PS1 era polygonal look, as well as the classic fixed camera angles in exploration that this genre is known for, but also mixing in arcade style first person shooting combat. This is set in the bustling London borough, filled with strange and interesting residents which you can help or hinder, all while the curse ticks down and she gets even closer to the end of her days. Being a survival horror title, you need to collect items and manage your resources to stay alive, but the choices that you make will influence your fate, which results in any one of the multiple endings in this game. There is a third eye mechanic which you can open to peer in between worlds, useful in exploration, but can also be used in combat to identify enemy weak points. It is not a Call of Duty style shooter, but something more resembling a light gun game in arcades, with the mixing of the gameplay elements being rather unique as well. So will you find a way to escape the curse, or will you succumb to the demon's allure? This next title is here not because it isn't promising or doesn't look good, since on the contrary, Temtem Swarm is following the tried and tested formula of a Vampire Survivors style Bullet Heaven roguelite, throwing swarms of enemies at you while still giving you the power to take out large swaths of them at a time. Only you are playing as the adorable Thames from the monster taming RPG of the same name. Of course, being a monster taming game, you can evolve your Thames into more powerful forms through the course of a round, and thus also support 3-player co-op with friends and thus look like mindless fun. I was a bit disappointed to see them make another one of these, but to be fair, they are putting their own spin on things and apparently has enlisted the help of another team in GG Tech Studios, so hopefully the main team is working on something more interesting, but this should still be a great game. We also have the highly anticipated release of The Rise of the Golden Idol this week, the sequel to The Case of the Golden Idol from 2022, which was pretty popular, having you investigating strange cases and occurrences that happen whenever this object is around. The original had an unsettling visual style and an almost ad-libs kind of investigation mechanic where you were exploring and clicking around to get words, which can then be slotted into your casebook to come up with your argument, with that mechanic making a return in the sequel as well. There will be 20 bizarre cases of crime, death and depravity, all connected to the legendary Golden Idol, with the sequel being set 200 years after the events of the first game, with the legend of the artifact only growing stronger in that time. The change in time period marks a change in the art style as well, which is less ugly but still kind of disturbing, where this game will allow you to revisit past deductions from other cases and to find the interconnecting threads between them, so I'm guessing that there will be some sort of larger narrative as well, and looks like a worthy sequel to a fan favourite game. I have two unconventional picks for the top two, with the first being Is This Game Trying to Kill Me? A horror, puzzle, escape room game set in an old shack deep in the forest, where there is a strange computer in a video game that is trying to kill you. One look at this and it is perhaps the first Inscription-like to come along, following the success of that game in 2021, but this is no mere cheap clone, coming to us from developer Stately Snail, who made the One More Dungeon games, so it is no fly-by-night developer. This mixes the video game parts of it with first-person escape room style puzzle solving in the cabin, with creepy looking characters that will interact with you. There are also multiple endings and numerous ways to die, so try if you dare for a spooky time, even if we are past spooky season. On the opposite end of things is Ever Home, a pixel art farming action-adventure title that looks pretty cozy even if it isn't a pure farming game. It self-describes as an open-ended minimalist RPG where you play as Lily, a young woman searching for her missing sister, being spirited away to a mysterious island where everyone seems to know you and your quest. The world of Everhome thrives on interpersonal relationships, so you need to befriend the residents, earn their trust, and build meaningful connections, all while tending to your homestead and engaging in activities like growing crops and learning new skills like fishing, foraging, and raising livestock. There appears to be a much more involved combat element, since you can venture out into the wilderness on the island to explore, having procedurally generated dungeons filled with monsters where you need to use powerful weapons and spells to survive, and if you do, you will be rewarded with rare minerals for use in the progression systems. Curiously, the developer refers to the villagers as Everfolk, while the location is named Everhome, so I don't know if everyone is dead and are supposed to be spirits or something, but there's your intriguing central mystery, with the isometric pixel art sprites being excellently done and is a treat for the eyes. Watch this video for more of the best pixel art games.